Hello and welcome back to a happy David 67, doing a wee post-match review of Celtic's battling 3-1 win against Motherwell yesterday afternoon. Called this video Deja Vu 3 because this is so reminiscent of the atrocious first half we had against St Johnstone, and then came back with a much better performance in the second half. And it's yet another game of two halves, yet another example of Celtic being rubbish in the first half and playing very well in the second half, taking control of the game. So often these days it's been the other way around. We've been playing well or pretty well in the first half and then thrown the game away in the second half. But it was a good win, has put us back just 2 points behind, puts us well within range to overhaul Rangers in the next week or few weeks. And certainly, if we keep up those sorts of performances, we'll go into the vital Rangers match at Ibrox in April, full of confidence. And obviously, we've won 2 out of 2 against them this season. And two of our best performances of the whole season have been in those two Rangers matches, playing consistently well for the whole 90, 95, 100 minutes of those games, and showing a battling spirit and cohesion which has been so absent so often this season. However, fully accept that there's still a lot to do. I think for me, the person who has the most to do is Brendan Rodgers. I was rather confused by his end of game interview on the TV, talking about the fact that we needed a player who was able to go in behind but also be kind of a focal point of the attack. That's why he put on Idah at the half time. Well, for goodness sake, why do you not have him starting? If that's what you analysed as being what Celtic needed, i.e., to have an Idah style player up front, well, why not start him? Why not have Keogh coming off the bench? Um, oh no, it's we changed things round at half time rather than starting with the best 11. I think once we got to about 60 minutes and put on CCV and Yang, I think that was probably the best lineup that we could have had to start the game. If CCV was fit to be on the bench, surely to goodness he was fit to start the game. What were we going to do if after 2 minutes Liam Scales twists his ankle, Mike Navraki's hamstring pull comes back, CSV's then got 90 plus minutes to play in as a sub to replace one or other of those two. So if he's fit to be on the bench, he's fit to come on after 2 minutes after an unexpected injury, then he needed to start. And certainly one of the several notes I've written down is that after CCV came on, suddenly Celtic looked much more reassured in defence. When CCV or Johnston or Taylor had the ball, we were able to get the ball out of defence. It really exposed, I thought, Liam Scales' lack of pace, often poor positioning, and his abysmal ability to get the ball out of defence. Celtic should really stop having Scales playing further up the pitch. If he's going to play at centre back, have him staying that bit deeper so that he isn't struggling to give a fast, although not very fast, forward a start. It's very clear that Bayer had him on toast, and that has been a recurring theme over recent weeks. I think teams have analysed the fact that Scales doesn't have the pace to get back if he's further up the pitch. They've also analysed that Scales' positioning is often poor if he hasn't got a full-back or a fellow centre-back to bail him out on the other side. And certainly once CCV came on, we looked much more reassured and assured in defence. CCV was able to cover behind Scales because of his better positioning and his greater pace. Bayer wasn't able to get in behind Celtic. And I think for the last 30 minutes or so, Motherwell really weren't a threat in the final third. Kuhn, I think that should be the last game he starts for Celtic this season. We have in Yang a player with lots of pace, lots of creativity, and as he showed about half a dozen times, a brilliant ability to beat a defender on the outside and whip across a lovely ball across the box. He also has the ability to cut in, as was the situation where he and Johnson set up the second goal. Idah, it's like Yang nicely cut in, lovely no look reverse pass to Johnson filling in behind him, super duper ball right across, and a wonderful first time finish by Idah. The kind of finish that Kyogo last season and the season before was so brilliant at. So for me, two players brought on, three players brought on made a difference. CCV made a big difference in defence. Idah made a much better fist at the game and leading the line than Kyogo, kind of playing a joint target man and Kyogo role in that he was able to get in behind, also be a focal point for attacks. And I thought Idah had a super duper game, fully deserved his two goals. Wonderful header off a good cross by Greg Taylor. I thought Greg Taylor was at fault for what could have been Motherwell's second goal, where he was out-muscled and out-jumped by Lennon Miller. Taylor was completely unable to get up at the back post to do anything to stop Miller scoring. Happily, Joe Hart made one of a couple of his great saves that kept us in the match at that time. Taylor's passing and work in the final third and the middle third was rather poor. A lot of his passes were misdirected, intercepted, or got nowhere near the attacker. But hopefully, once he gets fully into his match fitness, he'll be the big threat we require him to be in the middle third and the final third. And to give him credit, he had a great cross that got Idah his goal and another great cross later in the game that unfortunately was missed by the striker in the box. Lewis Palmer came on late, made a few wee nice moves, broke into the box, and one of the key things for me is that when Palmer came into the game, he was available. Had Idah not got the second goal, the ball would then have gone across to Palmer, who was unmarked at the back post, and that was a very similar situation when Yang's brilliant ball across the box found Palmer coming in off the left wing to score at the back post. Thought in the second half, Dyson Maeda had a much, much better game. Again, he came in off his wing, acted as an inside forward, kind of the role that Lila Bada has played so well, Jota has played so well, or in Brendan Rodgers' first spell, Scott Sinclair played so well. And I think Celtic do need more and more players get into the box to help out Kyogo or Idah. Rather disappointingly, I thought both McGregor and especially O'Reilly were underperforming. One of the few things I think Rodgers got right was starting Tomoki Iwata. I think Iwata did a great job recognising that Navroki and Scales were struggling, and after a while, Iwata was coming back to protect the two central defenders, which did lessen the impact of Bears' forward runs. Iwata also did a very good job mopping things up and linking things in midfield, which should have freed up O'Reilly and McGregor to create more in the final third. However, both the two were very disappointing. McGregor came on to his game in the second half better, was a bit more of an influence. I thought O'Reilly, for me, was very disappointing. Yet another very disappointing performance by O'Reilly. And the one thing for me that contrasts this half of the season from the first half of the season is he's so rarely getting himself into the box to score goals or at least try to take a chance, or getting into the box to link up to one of the central attackers, or to feed one of the wide players or other midfielders to score. Um, I can only really remember O'Reilly getting into the box a couple of times, and that was towards the end of the match. And in the first half, there was an absolutely wonderful ball across the box by Alistair Johnson from out wide, shortly after Motherwell had scored a goal. However, Kyogo and O'Reilly, rather than being there on the 6 yard line to put away an easy chance, were scarcely into the box. It fell then to Dyson Maida, who had managed to get himself into the box at the back post. However, by the time it got to him, the angle was completely no good for him to score with a header. To give Dyson Maida some credit, he at least got himself in the second half into the box. Quite how he missed that open goal from the wonderful whipped ball across the box. He was literally 1 or 2 yards out. Whole goal to header the ball, knee the ball, get it to go in off his bottom or off any bit of his body that's legitimate, and yet somehow he managed to get the side of his head on it to clear it past the post. He's almost doing exactly what their Mugabe or Casey or one of the other Motherwell defenders would have done miraculously to clear the ball. Somehow Desmond Maida managed to take on the role of the defender and somehow find a way to header that ball past the post. However, key thing was he got himself in the box. Next time he'll score the goal. Thought he did very well to get into the box second time, and his first time shot, only just cleared the bar. Could have been a brilliant goal. Key thing though is got himself in the box, had the chance. First time made a complete mess of it. Second time could have nearly scored. And for me, as I said, getting plenty players in the box is going to be the key. It's what we did so well under Ange for 2 years. It's what Celtic have done over the last 50 odd years, is get lots of players from midfield up into the box to support the attackers, and so that it's lots of people's job to score the goals, not just down to one man. In the first half, it looked like the only player that Rodgers wanted to score a goal was Kyogo, because nobody else was getting in the box to help him or support him. And only once did Kyogo really get given a chance in the first half. A beautiful pass by McGregor, probably the only thing he did in the first half that was positive for me. And Kyogo couldn't quite get enough power on it to beat Liam Kelly in the Motherwell goal. One player I think who does deserve a lot of praise, as I said earlier, is Tomoki Iwata. Hadn't played for months. Seems like several players to have been put on the scrap heap by Brendan Rodgers. Happily, Rodgers took him off the scrap heap, put him into the number 6 defensive midfield role, and I thought Iwata had a very good game. Personally, I think Iwata should just have stayed on the pitch rather than bringing on Bernardo. I would agree that Bernardo does give that wee bit more of an attacking threat. However, Tomoki Iwata is able to get himself forward, as he showed against Hearts early in the season with that wonderful fourth goal. And so I think simply asking Tomoki Iwata to push a bit further forward would have been a much better solution rather than putting on Bernardo, who did make a couple of good touches, but Celtic did kind of lose a wee bit of that glue and cohesion in midfield with Bernardo coming on. Thought Alistair Johnston looked, to start with, quite shaky. His passing and his defending wasn't quite up to his usual standards. However, almost as soon as he took off his mask that was protecting his broken face bone, he seemed to return to Alistair Johnston, the version that was so good in the second half of last season and has been good on and off this season. I thought he and Yang particularly had a great combination down our right hand side. Multiple times, one or the other was able to overlap. Multiple times, one or the other put the other into space. Both Yang and Johnson had some great crosses, which on another day would have been 2, 3, 4 goals for Idah and Maida, etc. in the box. I think if Yang and Johnson can perform that well in the matches over the next 11. We're going to be a big threat down the outside. We do have the option of playing Idah up front in the middle and playing Kyogo off the left. That is something that Ange Postecoglou did do a few times at the start of his career at Celtic when we still had Odsonne Edouard as a central striker. Didn't work brilliantly when Edouard and Kyogo were playing in that formation. However, Kyogo has played in that formation before in Japanese football and international football, and is a role that he is able to do much the same way that Daisen Maeda, who primarily was a central player, has shown great ability playing out wide on the right or the left and cutting in. So for me, Alistair Johnston deserves a lot of praise for his second half performance. I think, again, with him having missed a couple of weeks, he was a bit rusty, much the same way that I'm hoping that Greg Taylor was just a bit rusty, having had a couple of weeks off with injury, then 60 minutes last week against Kilmarnock. His defending was okay, apart from being useless for the Lennon Miller header. For me, the big disappointment was his usually good passing in midfield, and the final third was poor, apart from those couple of lovely crosses happily, which Idah put one away. So, lots of good things to take away from this game. However, we do need to play 95, 100 minutes of good football to win games. We can't afford for us to be relying on stoppage time goals again. However, one of the keys was, this time around, unlike previous games recently, we looked like we were a threat to score again in the final 10 minutes of normal time. We kept on pressing. We dominated Motherwell for the last 30-35 minutes of the game. Once CCV came on, once Yang got established in the right wing, there really was only going to be one team that was going to win the game from there. And happily, this time around, Celtic took their chances in stoppage time and won the game. Still a lot of work to do. The good thing, I think, was the team played in the second half as a team. They showed a lot more spirit, a lot more fight, a lot more passion, were a lot more reminiscent of the Ange Postecoglou 2 years, quite non-reminiscent of the way that Rodgers often got Celtic playing before, and often how he got Liverpool and Leicester playing. This was, for the most part, quite attacking football, quite anti-Rodgers style football, and I think a lot of credit needs to go to the players for the second half performance, and a wee bit of credit to Rodgers, who took 60 minutes to work out what was going to happen, how to beat Motherwell, rather than just relying on painting by numbers and having everything pre-programmed. So we got there in the end. We've cut the gap back to 2 points. The winning the title, winning the double is yet again fully in our control. We can, as things stand currently, afford to draw one of the two Rangers matches still to come in the league, as long as we win the other, and as long as we win all the other games. We may well get a wee bit of a boost and a bit of luck and help from Kilmarnock, as that is Rangers' next fixture. And lo and behold, we're top of the table rather than trailing Rangers if things go well for us in the game against Dundee, and less well for Rangers in their game against Kilmarnock next time. However, this result, beating Motherwell 3-1, should give Celtic confidence going into the next match. I think it also gives Rodgers a blueprint of how to set the team up. CCV in central defence, I would be personally inclined to go with Nawrocki rather than Scales, or Lagerbielke rather than Scales. just simply because I think other teams have worked out Scales's weaknesses at last. Um, and I think personally, Navrocki and Lagerbielke are overall better defenders than Scales. I think also both Navrocki and Lagerbielke are better at bringing the ball forward, much better at the ball at their feet, and are both able to see a pass and make a pass, which Liam Scales seems to have lost that skill or just is not good at making that skill. I think the two fullbacks should continue to be Johnston and Taylor, and hopefully that bit of 90 minutes of full match fitness for the both will make them stronger for the next 11 matches and the next three cup matches. I think Tomoki Iwata should continue in that defensive midfield role, certainly until Rio Hitati comes back. That allows us to have Paulo Bernardo and Odin Thiago Holm, etc., as players to come off the bench, depending what kind of role we need. I think once Hitati comes back, we can use Hitati in that deeper role, we can use McGregor in that deeper role, or we can, as was often the case when Celtic were playing better in the first half of the season, McGregor and Hattati both drop back into that role, alternating to restart the play, mop things up, etc. And that could be a very good combination once Hattati gets back to full fitness. But for the meantime, I think we keep Iwata behind McGregor and O'Reilly, and hopefully O'Reilly gets himself back to his best form, because if he is back to his best form again, we're going to be scoring a lot more goals, both through him and him creating it. And for me, it's very, very clear. We start with Yang on one wing, Maeda on the other, and then we can bring on Palma later in the match, and I think we can keep Nicholas Kuhn in the stands supporting the club from there. And finally, I think we need to start Idah up front rather than Kyogo. And again, that means we do have the option of bringing Kyogo and O off the bench, should it be needed late in the match, to shore things up, or as a change of pace, or to have a 1-2 combination, or even a 1-2-3 combination if it's for the last 5-10 minutes when we're well and well on top of a team, but needing to find that vital goal. And finally, as you may have seen in the title of the video, I talked about a lucky t-shirt. I try not to be that superstitious, but went back to my good old lucky t-shirt and wore that for the match yesterday. I really regretted not putting that t-shirt on for the Kilmarnock match, because I had the t-shirt already looked out to put on, didn't put it on. Then Celtic got themselves up, and I thought, okay, I won't bother putting it on at half time. I'll just leave it off, and then we threw the game away against Kilmarnock. So that t-shirt's always going to be on for the next 11 league matches and the next 3 cup matches, and the good luck lucky t-shirt will see us through to a wonderful double. I would not be too surprised, given the way that Rodgers is coping, or inverted commas, not coping with the situation at Celtic at the moment. I would not be the least bit surprised that he, like Wim Jansen all those years ago, wins the league and then leaves the next day in a huff. I think his reported. I didn't hear the actual radio interview, but apparently he was really very sexist and rude to the lady reporter. And she, from my experience, is a very professional journalist, knows her job, knows football, and is always polite and respectful in her questioning. And certainly, we don't need that kind of bad reputation representing the club. I've actually been quite disappointed in how confrontational, aggressive, and abrasive Rodgers has been recently with the TV and the written press. I think it's much better if you get the press on your side, much like Ange Postecoglou was always very good at doing. He, although occasionally did get a bit annoyed with the press, often had a joke or a clever comment to get them back on his side. And I think having people in the journalist world and the TV pundit world supporting you, or at least being fair to you, is actually going to be very helpful to the players as we go forward. Just to finish off, as usual, for all those new to the channel who've enjoyed this video and have had a wee look at the other content on the channel, the other videos, etc., please do click that subscribe button, push the numbers up to the next target, which is 400. Also, for all the viewers who've enjoyed the video, please do click that like button. It does help with all the YouTube algorithms. And as always, do feel free to pop pleasant, polite, instructive, informative comments for debate and discussion into the comment section, and I'll reply as best I can, as quick as I can, once it flags up on my system. So chat again tomorrow and through the week. Goodbye and hail, hail.